Dot 20 years ago. My daughter grew up with her jewelry, and now she's got a new company called Marklo, and she's here today to talk about how she built companies in the past and how she's recreating a brand new company that is fully AI native. So I would love to introduce Jessica Herrin.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you guys for being here, and thank you for having me. I'm excited to dig into this topic. I've just been kindly introduced as a serial entrepreneur, and I will just tell you all that really means is that I have a tremendous amount of experience doing things that I have absolutely no experience to do, which means that I have made an inordinate amount of mistakes. And luckily, I've learned from them and done something useful with them, and I hope I can pass on some of those learnings to you guys this morning. And this will be casual and interactive, and I hope that it's something you can take away from it. Because I think we're all in this moment of time where you have to have an entrepreneurial mindset because of the rate of change being faster than it's ever been before. I can say, building companies across these eras, some of my business school classmates are here today, which is very exciting. I wish I could have gone to both years with them, but I dropped out because I started my first business because it felt like a moment in time, much like this one, which is, wow, the world is changing around us, and that was Web 1.0. Okay, why we had to start a business right then was technology just enabled you to aggregate data and make a transaction and take offline processes and make it easier online, and that's what Wedding Channel was. It was retail technology that put wedding registries online as well as wedding directories. I'm proud to say it's still part of the Knot today, and it solves a simple problem. When I went to start my next company, which became the Stella Knot family of brands, I wanted to do something that was mission first. Sort of started my first company with my head around like, what is the addressable market? And then the second one I really wanted to do with my head and my heart, which is what is a problem in the world I feel soulfully connected to that I wanted to solve, and then how do you do that with technology? And that I'll tell you a little bit more about Stella Dot, which was really enabled by Web 2.0, which is the social internet. Right? Business really couldn't have existed without that enabling technology. And then now here we are in the AI era. It is an amazing time to build with technology. But before we talk about that, I really want to talk about the thing that I think everyone in this room really cares about, which is the customer. Because business is really quite simple. It's like complex as it can feel, and on the day when you get into all your operational decisions, at the end of the day, you simply have to be creating a product or a service that is worth more value to a customer than the dollar in their pocket. And I don't think that is any harder than if you truly listen to and care about your customer enough to solve their problems in a unique way, then you can create a sustainable business, right? So that's really all we're doing. It's all we were doing then, it's all we're doing now, it's all we should be doing in the future. I could do that at Stella Dot because I was the customer. I'd been in technology. I was, at that time, I'd followed my husband to his job in Texas, and I was working full-time at Dell after I'd done Wedding Channel and we'd sold it. And I was looking at the world thinking, how am I gonna have this baby and still do what I had been doing as an entrepreneur, working all the time? And this was a time when flexible work for women did not exist, right? How many of you work from home or can work a flexible schedule, right? That did not exist, right? So I felt like, what is that how am I gonna reconcile these two parts of me? The one that wants to have a career, the one that wants to really be a mom working, not a working mom, where I could put the mom part first. And I knew I couldn't be alone in feeling that problem. And right about the same time, a customer of Wedding Channel was Neiman Marcus. And so we provided enterprise retail systems. And I was in an elevator in Dallas, and Mary Kay consultants were there. And we were in an elevator, it's like this big, and they were pumped. Like they had sashes and tiaras, and they were telling me about they just wanted Pink Caddy. And I was like, wow, I could see, this has been an on-ramp for women into the workforce. They were in the happiness business, more than they were selling makeup. This had paid for women to get out of bad marriages, put their kids through college, pay the mortgage. I'm like, I want to do something profound like that. But at the same time, I was also like, isn't that kind of a pyramid scheme? This is very old school. Felt like a business for my grandmother, not for me. And I just started getting curious, well, what would that be for the modern woman? What would that look like? Well, it would be retail worthy in its brand. It would be tech enabled. And that became the seed for building Style and Dot and a very different model. And by the way, I will tell you, I went to a direct sales conference and I left there, I remember like saying to my husband, like, there is no way I could build this company. Like, it is so arcane. And I was like, oh crap, man, that's not the reason why I can't do it. That's the reason why I have to do it. So I went into where people thought it was crazy, and I was one of them, to think I was gonna go into this old school industry and like try to make a difference and like do it, listen, but I did it and it worked. It took a lot to figure out how to do it, but when we did, it started to scale. And we didn't have stores, we had living rooms. People bought a starter kit, they sold jewelry to their friends and family in the community. It was never about the jewelry for me, it was always about like the economic opportunity. And ultimately, we went on to sell billions of dollars worth of product, and we helped people earn over $500 million of income that would be, for paid for mutual fertilization, all kinds of like amazing things that gave people more power in their life. But along that time, there was a moment, which sounds like a good problem to have, but I can assure you it's a problem. We had a year where we went from 3 million to 30 million, and then the next year we did 100 million, which sounds like a high-class problem, but it is a problem, especially when you have inventory. What you end up with is a staff that's underhired and overwhelmed, especially in customer service. We used to do trainings for our sales force. I have appeared in every airport hotel across the country. And every quarter, we'd have about 13 cities. I would hit about 5 of them as we wanted to. We created community, we created professional training. And I remember very vividly returning home from SFO, getting into the office, and my team telling me that they had not yet escalated this quite dire situation, where for many of you who are here as a CX leader right now, okay, is it your nightmare to have calls in queue older than your SLA? Our oldest case was 2 weeks old. It was, thank you for cringing. Thank you for feeling that pain, like the stress that you have, right? And our field, which is very passionate about their customer, when their case would go unanswered, they would then call you again, and then email you again, and then chat with you again. So we were like logarithmically growing with our cases out of control, and Crescendo did not exist. Okay, so that means that there are just all these unsolved cases mounting, and I was like, oh my God, I had an all hands meeting, and basically said, if you are in accounting, if you are in merchandising, if you are in technology, because we built basically the Shopify of direct sales so we had a tech team, we had all this stuff. It's like, no matter what your job is, guess what your job title is today? Customer service. We don't deserve another customer unless we're taking care of the ones we have. And remember, this was a very intimate, business, right? I had been in their living room, right? I knew our customers, right? I knew the seller, and the seller is selling to their kid's teacher. And so they're going to the park and seeing their neighbor, and the person's like, hey, where's my necklace? It's very personal. And so I felt mortified. So we all got into the office. We all became customer service agents. And that meant that even my children, right, my husband, we're all in there nights and weekends, closing every single case. And my mantra was, love the problem away. This is not about scalability. This is not about profitability. This is about making it better, and next time we do better. But we never let this happen again. And I think the good thing that came away from this was, one, a lot of people got a free necklace, but after that, right, we just had to apologize for our egregiousness. But what we got was a muscle inside of our organization that we never forgot again. What became part of our core onboarding program for new hires, what we repeated quarterly with everyone in the building, was they had to do the 3 T's: training, telephone, trunk show. Because it is one thing to build software for a POS system on an iPad app if you are just sitting in the office, right, and thinking about it. It is quite another to be in someone's dimly lit living room, holding a baby on one hip and a glass of wine and trying to check people out when everybody's got to go at once, right? You build a much better tool when you walk a million miles in your customer's shoes, when you truly understand what they're doing. For our merchants that were in New York, which is very giving Devil Wears Prada people, okay? When you walk into a living room in Kansas and you are recognizing that, oh, people come to our brand because you've got a mother and a daughter and a grandmother shopping together versus one aesthetic preference, you realize that your style range and your sizing has to accommodate your customers, not your own preference. And that radically shapes. And I really think that muscle of being deeply obsessed with and connected with our customer is what allowed us to recover from that and continue to double and grow, right? And really make an impact. So I come from this deeply rooted in the customer experience. But as much as we experienced hypergrowth, we also experienced the opposite. So when COVID came, we dropped 80% in a month. And I will tell you, now this problem is not unique right? We had much more serious problems as a world during that time, but I can assure you this, you do not want to be in the selling, going out accessories at in-home trunk shows with an international supply chain during a global pandemic. Luckily, we had become a family of brands, and what hurt our jewelry business helped our skincare business. And so we overnight almost became more of a skincare company than jewelry company. And while COVID also hurt the business, it also made me realize it accelerated the mission of the company, which wasn't jewelry, it was flexible work for women. And COVID accelerated the change in the world that needed to exist. More people could work from home. And I had that moment where I could step back in time and ask myself, if it was for a net new decision, right? If I were starting a company today, what would it be? Should I rebuild this, right, from where we are at this point, or would I do something different? And I realized I would do something different. And so the woman who bought a starter kit for Stella & Dot, today she would be an influencer and not only represent one brand, she would represent 15. Or she would start her own Shopify store, which doubled during COVID, because there was now enabling technology to have even more independence and freedom. Or she would run one of those brands. It would, instead of small, it would become medium, and medium would become big. So I got that incredible moment in life where I could make a net new decision and start with a blank piece of paper. And actually, it's like one of my, forget the business advice of errors, my life advice is like every once in a while, you have to ask yourself, am I living the life when I was starting running the business, am I have the job, would I do this? Like if I were just making a net new decision today, would it be what I'm doing? Right? And if you get up too many days in a row and the answer to that question is no, you know you need to do something bold. And so I went back to this phrasing that one of our board members at Wedding Channel, my first business, had said, like, God, the world has changed so much. It's like we thought it was flat and it's round. You get to rechart every course. And I've always thought about that metaphor of that in business and thinking about the moment in time that we're in. And here's the thing, AI is that big of a change all over again, right? Is that we thought the world was flat and it turns out it's round, we get to reimagine everything is new. But knowing the world is not flat and actually getting to new places are very different things, right? Because going into an unknown ocean is very different than just the awareness that is out there. But where we are in AI, I think it's very fascinating, right? So we, as humans, 300,000 years, like we just found out it's round. It's been 1% of the time we've been on the planet that we even knew that it was round. And even after we knew, it took us another 1,000 years before we had the tech to actually make a globe. And then when someone made a globe, it didn't even have the Americas on it, right? And then somebody had to go out and they thought they were going to Asia. And they got to another place. We're sort of at that moment, right? Here's the world's round. Maybe it was Alan Turing being like, hey, maybe machines can think, right? We now it's commercially viable. And so you know this, and in my selling metaphor, I will continue with the Captain Obvious quote, right? Which is just that the organizations that look at a new course, which means stop drawing the old org chart, stop having the old metrics, stop managing and hiring for old assumptions. That's how you will be the person that sets sail and discovers places that your competitors didn't even know were on the map, right? So, but you have to change to do that. You have to change your mentality. And I actually think the flat way of thinking, right, where you're just trying to go to the courses, same places you went to when you thought the world was flat, is really thinking about this, and this is the one. I don't like the idea of using AI to eliminate jobs, right? My whole thing was I wanted to do job creation, economic empowerment. And so we're not trying to do the same thing with less cost and get rid of the people. It's the moment where you have a grander ambition, right? In your job, you should like forget CX the way that it was defined, irrelevant. What is it next? What can it become? Right? How do you make it more of a customer experience? I firmly believe that's about sales. It's about customer experience in a new definition and thinking broader about what you can now afford to do with AI. And forget that you don't need scale, right? It used to require more headcount. You'll be able to grow without adding it, but you'll have to change the way you think of the roles, right? Roles won't be strategy at the top, execution at the bottom. We'll be redefining everything that we do. So, this is an old sales training. I told you I traveled a lot to do sales training, so I have to pull out this one, which I love. Some of you have heard this. You have to have this mindset because we're in this moment, right? We just terrible news yesterday for a lot of families. Like, I was stressed out for them, the people at Meta, like wondering if they're losing their job with the idea that AI is driving this. And no doubt there's this time of shift where it's stressful for people. But you can only control a certain amount in your own world, right? And try to do the best you can with the moment that you're in. And there's two ways to look at the world, right? This is a sales thing where there's two people that sold shoes. And they go to a new market and they land in a new world, a developing world, and one person who works for the pessimist company gets there and he calls up back to the home office like, oh my God, no one here wears shoes. But another person, same sales job, lands there, looks around, calls up and from the optimist company, he's like, oh my God, no one here wears shoes. Right? It's like seeing the opportunity. And I'm like, I've got to look at AI that way. Like, instead of getting depressed and concerned, like, we got to look at this and be like, wait a minute. AI can help lean teams operate like enterprise brands so that they give them the experience and expertise and the execution power that they never had before, which can then fuel economic growth and new job creation. But you still, as a leader, have to have that in your mentality, so that that's how you operate, right? With the sense of grander ambition, with the sense of how am I reskilling people, retraining people, up-leveling businesses in order to grow, right? That's our human obligation. So I took a pain that I'd lived before with Shopify, and now I'm building Marklo. Marklo is a revenue OS for D2C brands. Is anyone in retail or D2C? I know you guys come from all industries. And so this is where I think about the company that I had, the pain we lived in CX, right? Where you did not have AI. Like, that would not happen today, right? That 2 weeks calls in queue. Well, there are so much pain in every other part of the organization of radical inefficiencies that you can help automate for people and let the humans go do the creative, strategic, human connection work. So that's what Marklo is doing for D2C brands. But rather than talk to you about like what it does, I'm going to think about why we got there and how you might apply that to the industry that you are actually in. So for retail, I really believe that in the AI era, there's just 3 things that a brand needs to do to do well. You have to make a great product, uniquely for a specific customer that has a reason to exist, that someone cares about in this world. You must deliver it with excellence. That's the manufacturing, that's the delivery, that's the service of it. And then you have to have a soulful connection with the customer community. Everything else is AI's job, right? So do the things that matter, automate the things that are not a unique part. And this is why, how many of you are in established organizations? Like you've been around for more than 5 years. You are not AI native, right? You did not come with the dawn of GPT 3.0, right? So then you have to think about, well, where are we in our operating mode? Well, we all started with, I mean, everybody here, is at mode 1, where everybody, individuals within your company are just using chat to be better at their job. You kind of can move to, everybody here, if you're a customer of Crescendo, you are in certainly using specialized tools adopted for a purpose that are sort of centralized and trained. And that's getting into having workflows rewired and orgs restructured, right, is the goal. Like, where in 2026, 2027, organizations are going to radically mature with AI to have those enabling technologies that make what an organization looks like really different. So I wanted to just give you a visual metaphor for what I think this is going to look like inside of a company. So I was meeting with a retailer in the UK, talking to their CEO and their chairman and their CMO. And they were talking about how AI is going to affect retail. And they were thinking very much in this mode of, well, our customers are going to use AI to try to find us, so we have to be GEO optimized instead of SEO optimized. We're like, okay, check, right? And then also when we do this photo shoot, I'm looking, they have this beautiful, very colorful brand and prints, and they're thinking about how they take their existing business and just use these little point tools. And say, well, when we do this photo shoot, I probably, whoever's going to do the creative and send out the catalogs, they can use AI to help write the copy. Maybe AI helps edit the image. That is very early modes of AI thinking. Because the AI native company today is going to have so much automation throughout their company that their go-to-market plan is going to look like this. Right? The tint is not going to be something a customer looks at on an old catalog. The tint is going to be an activation with gelato and rosé, and every customer is going to be in that experience, because the dollars that have been in the organization have been shifted out of inefficiencies in every department and moved to the customer experience, right? The new bar, what AI will really enable is the standard is the best experience your customer has ever had. So you have got, and that's who you're competing with, right? So companies have to change in order to get everything as close to the customer as possible. So if you're sitting there like, okay, I'm responsible for this, what do I do? I like to make things simple when they feel complicated. It's like, what are the questions that I can ask myself in order to navigate then this organizational change? First one is, what is our grander ambition? If you don't get that question right up front, you will lack the imagination to do the rest of them. Everything else will be wrong. And I can't answer that for you. Only you and your team can answer, what company are we going to build for, the one that we can now become, not what were we, how do we cut costs out of that? That is lack of imagination, right? And this is not the moment in time to have that. But then you also have to ask then, once you've got the grand ambition, what's our strategy, right? What's our org chart to support it? What do we focus on first? Should we build it or buy it? And how do I personally lead during this time? Okay, your job is to automate your job. Does anybody have any doubt about that? Does it scare anybody? Like, well, what do they do with me after I automate it? Okay, your job is to then be more creative, more strategic, and more connected to the customer. But everybody's got to automate your job. That's happening, so you just have to embrace that. Because the new org, right, will have a combination of agents and people. And so every org chart is going to be drawn with the combination of, okay, we have technology, and then there are agents that help us with technology. Same thing with success, right? Your org chart, you should draw this on a piece of paper if you haven't, with a blank org chart, and it won't be just it won't just be generative AI, it'll be agentic AI that goes and does the job. The other thing I feel very strongly about, maybe it's because I have two daughters, one graduating from college and another one, and I think if you have that, you're like, what are the young people gonna get a job? My daughter went to her first internship, and her manager said to her, I feel really sorry for you because I feel like I can just use ChatGPT instead of having you around. And you're like, yeah, she said to say that. But the reality is, that is a very bad way to think. The reality is, what AI will do is make junior people more capable. But you need to combine wise people with new people to then blend that combination. Every organization needs to have young people and experienced people in it, instead of thinking of it eliminating jobs. But the thing you should consider is that roles will converge. This is where I think everyone should start with a blank piece of paper. Forget the old job description. Right? Tech, you've seen this, like the technology industry is usually on the cutting edge. So if you look at someone building a tech company, you will see that they're a couple years ahead of other industries. If you look at what's happening in tech, this example of product builder. Who is here is in a tech company? Okay, so this is like, I started my career as a product manager in an enterprise software company. Okay, that job today, which is kind of exciting. I have a GitHub repo and I have shipped code, which is like very exciting for me because I'm engineering adjacent, but I've never been an engineer. The concept of product manager, product designer, coder, QA, these are all collapsing radically. Think about what that will look like in every other function, right? When I built Marklo and thinking about that for D2C and retail brands, I can really see the things that are adjacent to each other, inventory planning, merchandising, whether it's design, very adjacent to brand marketing, product marketing, those roles will collapse into one and they become a brand architect. Whatever the name is, think creatively about thinking future back and then drawing the org chart for the future. And I will just say this, the speed of transformation requires an intolerance for the incurious. Okay, it's not an option. I would love to just be an expert and I not have to go back to being a beginner because that would just be so easy. Honestly, I wouldn't love that, I would be bored. But the reality is it's just not a moment in time where you're gonna be relevant unless you are radically learning right now. And I just say that with love so that you can then go and accept that and then decide where to focus next. All right, so busy work close to the customer is what you automate so that you can give them a better experience. You're doing that right now with where we are, right? Crescendo is doing that for customer service. But there's the other one that I really want to highlight, right, is pain to payoff potential. Other areas, like if there's a contractor and a spreadsheet, because it's really clear instructions, if you can do it that way, AI can probably do it. There are data patterns, AI can probably do it. So there's some things to think about there. But let's talk about the pain potential, because this is where I'm just, as an entrepreneur, when you're starting something from zero and you gotta get it to exist, this is my sort of the steps I go through. My mantra is pretty simple. If it doesn't exist, make it so. If it's so, make it good. If it's good, make it great. If it's slow, make it fast. If it's hard, make it easy. Right? That's what AI can do for you. And if you think about where it's gonna help, and I wanna warn you, because if anyone here is an executive managing a team, and you haven't done the job lately, I find that this is where the biggest disconnect is. The leader and the doer. If you ask the leader, how is this going? How's it going in your organization? This is, you've all seen this. Has anybody, I hope you've not been in the ER lately, but this is what everybody will get. The pain scale, right? You know this chart where I'm stealing this from the medical world, is like, how much pain are you? Is it like 1 or is it 10? If you ask the leader, where are you on the pain scale? They'll often be like, it's good, we're good. You go try to do that job, it is not good. It is very painful. I did Undercover Boss. And where I went, now whole objective, why this show is funny is because the boss looks like an idiot. Because the boss doesn't understand the pain scale for the person doing the job. I did customer service, I did our warehouse, I went and did our jewelry design showroom, and you know, I honestly think everyone should do this, like lose the blonde wig, but everyone should do this. Same thing with like the training structure. Do not be disconnected from your customer and do not be disconnected from your employees. Right? I've talked to some people lately and they think that those people are fine in their jobs, like merchandising, marketing, inventory, and I'm like, I honestly can tell you, because I've done that job, it's not. It's so inefficient. And if your people aren't complaining about inefficiency, you have the wrong people or you're leading them the wrong way, where they're not seeing the opportunity of transformation. Right? So make sure you understand what the pain scale is and how you can make it better. Because you don't want just to have AI that helps you come up with the right answer to the wrong question. If you're using the right AI, right, so vertical, why I really deeply believe enough to sort of burn the boats and go start Marklo to do vertical AI for D2C, is I think you have to make sure that there's enough harness around the technology, that it has enough of a point of view, that it's trained on your brand and your capabilities, that everyone using it is coming up with the right answer to the right question. But oftentimes I'll talk to business people and they'll say, did I do my tasks? Versus, did we get the right things done and did it achieve its goals? Right? How do we, this is one of my favorite examples from direct to consumer. Everyone is focused on paid ads. And they're like, what's our ROAS? That's the wrong question, honestly. Right now in D2C, like, if you look at the numbers in the industry, it's why it's so broken. If you look at the outcome of Allbirds making a shift into AI and Everlane being sold to Shein, which is nuts, right? This is because it's fundamentally broken as an industry. And the question isn't, how do we do paid better? It's how do we become less reliant on paid? Right? That's the right question. And the answer to that is you have to be omni-channel and you have to redirect spend into doing other things so that you're not renting a customer. So make sure you're trying to get your AI and putting it in the place of focus to get more people to the right questions. I also love this thought of like, should we build it or buy it? Because people love this idea that they can just vibe code an app and replit. I was just at another conference, like Anthropic is using Salesforce, okay? So if they're not vibe coding all of their SaaS, the SaaS apocalypse is overstated. You should, it's my belief, you should buy as much as you can. Let other people dedicated to this problem solve it. And right now, there's a lot of people testing and people complaining about piloting. I'm like, no, we're in learning mode. Keep trying new tools. Keep seeing what you can buy because they will get better. This is my, I remember actually, I bought Tupperware once, and it had like a little, the paper ad selling it to you in the grocery store, and it had a picture of someone microwaving a hamburger in the Tupperware. And I just remember thinking to myself, well, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And that to me is buying software. Like, you could actually take raw meat and put it in the microwave and it would cook, but it wouldn't taste good. That is your homebrew of what could be happening if you're trying to do too much without just don't make that your core competency. Okay, so let's see, make sure we have time for our last thing. So this is really
my advice to you, because if you're a leader, and I'm just vulnerable moment, I have not talked to an exec that doesn't actually admit this, right? So you look at LinkedIn and you look at Instagram and everyone's talking about, this is what I'm doing this, and you're just like, oh my God. It is a dizzying pace to keep up with AI right now. It is changing so fast, you feel like you're clueless, right? Most of the time, that's okay. I think we're just all in this moment of time. This is actually in business school, I remember doing this. I went on a ski trip with our friends, and I wanted to try snowboarding. Is anybody like a native skier and has not tried snowboarding for the first time? Okay, if you think these things translate, they do not. You're like, if you're here, you are. I'm like, I can go down to, and I actually grew up in Arizona, so I was not like actually not a native skier, and I had married a boy from Reno, who like, if you grew up in Reno, Nevada, not only do you like you are a good skier, and that was sort of part of my wedding vows, is that I would become a good skier, so I could keep up. And so I like got to the point where I could go down, not gracefully, it didn't look good, but I could go down pretty much anything on the mountain on skis. Here's a snowboard, and you're just like on your ass on the bunny hill all over again. So basically, the thing is, I could just quit that though, because I don't have to snowboard. I'll just ski. In work, they took away the skis. There's no more skis, and you have no other mode of transport but that snowboard. So you're just gonna have to get on it and fall down until you can become fluent on this and get around, because there's just no other option around going back to the bunny hill. So I hope your stack, this is my stack, just to share this, but I hope you look at it in these two groups. Here's the things I'm using that are working, and then here are the things I'm experimenting with and trying to learn right now. So the things that have made me radically more productive, Whisperflow. I am the meme of the like VC person talking to myself in the corner because I just talk to my computer now. Granola remembers everything. You can ask it for it makes things so much more efficient. Claude Cowork, Claude Code and Design are like my OS and my day to life. It's eliminated so much. I'm in Replit all the time as a product builder. Notebook LM makes learning easy. So if you have, I will take like 3 different reports from the venture industry, put it in Notebook LM, listen to a podcast while I'm in the car, because learning is so hard right now because it's so much volume that makes that easier. And then there's other experimental tools that we're using at Stellandot and other places. But just think to yourself, like, I'm gonna be spending some nights and weekends trying to keep up with all this stuff because it's just going at the pace that requires that. So I'll end with this last story. And it's like I tailored this to the fact that I knew people I went to business school with are gonna be here, because this is also from a moment where I learned something. When I was trying to start my first business with my partner Jenny, we met with our boss. He was going to give us advice. He had run companies. We were 24-year-old kids that like hadn't really, I'd only worked at a couple of tech startups. And we had created our plan in Excel, and let me tell you guys, it was amazing. The company was going to make so much money. It was brilliant, okay, this business. It was just brilliant what we had done. And we gave him our pitch, and he looked at us, and he's like, wow, I really admire you. I envy you. And I was thinking to myself, like patting myself on the back, like, oh my God, we nailed this. Like, we crushed this. Like, yes. And then he went on to say, he's like, because you are so naive. And I was like, okay, think he's not rolling out the tongue. Like, I'm pretty sure he's insulting us, not like complimenting us on our business plan. And then he went on to explain, he's like, because you have not done this before. Like, you have no idea what you're doing. So you look ahead of you at this one wall, and which for us at the time was funding and signing up our first retail customers. He's like, you think that like after that is success. Like, you just get over that one wall and you're good. He's like, but I have done this before, so I look down from above and I see that behind that wall is another one. It's higher. And after that, there's another one and another one and another one. And honestly, I'm just too tired to even try. And at that moment, I could look at him and say, oh, thank you. Because I learned more than I'd had in a classroom at that moment, which is just making the personal commitment to myself that I would never be too tired to try. And to recognize that naivete, used wisely, is actually a gift. And over time, I have learned that you don't have to just brute force yourself over every single wall, which the inexperienced tend to do. I think that's actually where the 996 toxic narrative comes from. It's everybody just using brute force because they lack experience. The reality is, you can get a friend to help boost you over the wall. You can find a window, you can have a door, But the reality is you just have to recognize that don't remain a skeptic and don't be too naive to try, because we're all in this, we're all charting new courses, and you've got this. So thank you. With that, I don't know if we have any time for questions. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Good questions or on time? So you're coming up. You're next. Okay. Thanks, everybody.